gosh. Come on. So in all reality, I should have a rat, but I can tell I don't.
Nothing there either. It's about the time we get the paths beaten down so the frag isn't slapping us in the face, the season's over.
We're here, embedded in the reedy marshlands of Maryland's eastern shore. You're listening to Chief Donna, Wolf Mother Abbott, and her cousin, Brenda, Morning Marsh Woman Abbott.
The water is just full of musk. That's a good sign.
And this morning, they're hunting muskrat. As descendants of the Nanacoke tribe, this tradition has been passed down through their family for generations.
Hey, Chief.
Hey, did you get a black one or a brown one?
Might be a black. You smell the perfume? Actually, it smells good, seriously.
That's what all the high dollar perfumes are made from, or the musk from these. It's very emotional for us coming down here because it's all our ancestral land back here. We've been trapping back here, I think 3 years now, 3 winters now, and I've seen a change just in the 3 years that we've been back here. A lot of this land back here that's now marsh used to be farmland. There was actually persimmon trees back here that the deer would feed off the persimmons. We were driving up the road and now it's nothing, it's just all marsh. All the trees are dying. We are all about trying to keep our culture and our traditions alive. We're gonna keep doing it as long as we can.
Welcome to After the Fact. For the Pew Charitable Trust, I'm Emily Chow. Across the globe, climate change is causing sea levels to rise and making coastal flooding worse. And in the United States, some areas are feeling the effects at an alarming pace. In Maryland's Chesapeake Bay, the sea level rose 1 foot in the past century. That's twice as fast as the global average. Pew's Conserving Coastal Wetlands team works to support policymakers on how to protect wetlands like the marsh the Nause-Waiwash people call home.
The roads, they were high. It wasn't sinking at all.
These ecosystems play a crucial role in mitigating climate change. They store carbon at much higher rates than they let out and reduce the amount of CO2 released into the atmosphere. But this issue isn't just changing the environment and ecosystems. For generations, the Nause-Waiwash people have lived in balance with the marshes of Maryland's eastern shore. They raise families, work, and take part in cultural traditions like muskrat trapping. But as the waters rise, these lands are disappearing, and with them, a tradition is at risk.
Did you break it?
Last year's pole.
Yeah. We're in desperate need of trap poles.
Yes, we are.
We usually let the traps sit in the same lead 2 or 3 days, and we don't catch anything. We'll pick them up and move them to a different lead, find a better place for it. The muskrat is part of the ecosystem, and it plays a big role in keeping everything healthy and regenerating. It's a very significant animal. One of the Native American lures is that we believe that the earth was created on the back of a turtle shell. To create the earth, they needed an animal to dive under the water to bring that mud up from off the bottom. And the only animal that could hold their breath long enough to do that was the muskrat.
We're with Chief Abbott and her cousin Brenda as they take us through the marsh. We're on a wide, dirt-covered trail that is surrounded on both sides by tall, tan reeds of grass that stand at least 5 feet tall.
Right along there was the old road, and we used to walk down that road to pick wild asparagus. And they put this new road in. You're not going to find wild asparagus anywhere back here now. There's actually been shards of pottery bowls that have been found in this area, but it's all marsh now.
Chief Abbott and her people have witnessed the landscape shift over the years, and these ecological changes have made it difficult for the tribe to teach their traditions to the next generation. One practice that Chief Abbott is fighting to preserve is muskrat trapping.
Mother Earth is upset, and everything is just so out of sync, so out of whack. And the old timers would always say that earlier in the season, that the rats build their houses, the longer, the colder the winter's going to be. So we saw them building houses first to mid of October, and we're thinking, yes, it's going to be a long, cold winter. And it really wasn't. Maybe the sea level rise, maybe pollution, maybe a lot of things.
Sea level rise is causing more and more flooding on Nause-Waiwash land. When this happens, saltwater inundates the habitats where muskrats and other species build their homes. The high salt levels can also affect food sources like cattails that typically grow around fresh water. Eventually, these changes could cause the muskrats to die off or migrate elsewhere.
The mussels get released usually in the middle of February, and it's just now starting. And a lot of times when all that starts to happen, the muskrats will have tears in their fur where they're fighting over each other, fighting over the female. We haven't seen any of that, so it's getting a little late for that. 40, 50 years ago, they were so plentiful back then that trappers did it for a living. That was their livelihood. Now it's just done for fun because there's so few of them left.
Because I think I just set this the other day, so we'll give it another day or two.
We come down here and we often feel people walking with us, walking by us, guiding us in doing the right thing.
The climate challenges that the Nause-Waiwash deal with are not limited to just their neck of the woods. Flooding is the most common and costly weather-related disaster in the United States. More than 8.6 million Americans live in areas susceptible to coastal flooding. That's about the population of New York City.
Oh, we got the prize today. How about that?
Success! Chief Donna caught the second muskrat of the day.
This method is very humane. They're called Connie bear traps. Her father, my uncle, was very instrumental in getting the patent for these traps. Now, Pop and Uncle Lu walked around with dozens of these at one time, walking through the marsh just over your shoulder like this, and
I don't know how they did it.
got it all strung together and kept right on going. My father would come home with 400 or 500 piled up in the bed of a pickup truck. My grandmother, my mother, they always just potted them down with carrots and potatoes and a little bit of sage, some good eating. They'd use the pelts for blankets, and the bones were used for tools, fish hooks, needles. I think the highest I ever remember the pelts, the black pelts went for $16, $17.
I was born on the last day of muskrat season, March 15th.
You're hearing Brenda, mourning marsh woman Abbott.
So my dad left, took my mom into Cambridge Hospital, left her there, come all the way back down here, went up the attic because he had his pelts up there hanging, drying, and sold the pelts and went back to the hospital and paid for me. I was like $75, so that's how I got mourning marsh woman. He always told me you come at a good time.
As we walk further into the marsh, Chief Abbott points out more landmarks.
This area back here was what was known as Abbott Town. That was our ancestral community. We are a part of the Nanticoke.
The homeland of the Nanticoke people spans what we call today the Chesapeake Bay and Delaware.
Our people were here first for many generations, for thousands of years. A lot of people are under the misconception that there are no longer any indigenous bloodlines left here, and that is so far from the truth. If your family has been in Dorchester County for longer than 3 or 4 generations, chances are you got indigenous bloodline there.
In the mid-1600s, the Maryland governor ordered militias to destroy Nanticoke villages to force them out of the area. Many Native people were murdered. Land was seized and never returned.
Part of the Nanticoke went north and east into what is now Delaware, and the rest of us stayed behind here in Dorchester County and moved out into the marshes. And so there's no documentation of any of that.
For decades, the descendants of the Nanticoke in this area downplayed or suppressed their heritage to outsiders in order to avoid persecution. But by the late 1980s, attitudes had changed.
A couple of our elders decided that we needed to start preserving some of our culture. The name Nause and Waiwash are names of two Indian villages that were in Dorchester County. We became a nonprofit organization and picked those two names.
The Nause-Waiwash, led by Chief Abbott, are working to preserve their history and culture, but are facing challenges due to the changing environment. For example, the once abundant muskrat population is now dwindling.
I don't really believe it's that they're being over-trapped because there's not many trappers anymore. I think if we don't start changing something soon, we're going to be at a point where we can't reverse any of it. Then all of this will be gone. We won't be able to get out here and trap and have fun and pass the tradition on to our next generation. My son has an interest in it. He's 30. She's got a nephew that just loves coming out here. We're trying to keep the tradition alive and passing it forward. Back in the 70s, every day, my father, he would put the tailgate down and just start skinning muskrats on the tailgate, and outside cold, nothing on but a t-shirt and his pants, no long sleeves or anything. My sister and I would help gut them and prep them to be sold. We had to have our homework done first, though.
Yeah, this knife is dull.
Sorry.
That's all right. I'll get it.
Make you slow down. Competition, you don't want to put your knife down because then you lose time.
We're back with Chief Abbott.
After we've caught the
She's prepping the muskrat that she caught earlier today outside in her backyard.
We will skin him out, and we plan to harvest the pelt and the meat. So I use a yellow handle queen.
It looks like a small paring knife.
My father used this type of knife. My grandfather used this type of knife, so keeping it real. So I'm going to go in by this hind quarter here, pull the fur up, and my attempt is to cut all the way across. Those are the musk glands. That's what gets removed and used for perfume.
A lot has changed in such a short period of time. I guess it's more noticeable to me because I've seen the progression of the change. Like my son right now, this is all he knows. He doesn't ever remember 500 muskrats in a day.
It's very moving to come back here and know that I'm walking in the same footsteps as my ancestors. I think they probably did it a little more efficiently than I can right now. It's like walking on your mattress at home because you got to get your sea legs about you and get your balance. That's why we have walking sticks, to make sure the ground is solid enough that we can step on it, because some of this marsh has no bottom to it.
Estimates show that flooding in the United States causes billions in damages. It's about 1 to 2% of the total U.S. GDP every year. And in Maryland and many other places, people are facing displacement from their homes.
People are having to move out. If you're a new homeowner, it's hard to get the homeowner's insurance because of all the flooding. The septics in the wells are threatened by the salt water. When you do a test to see if you can put your well and septic in, you have to have a certain amount of drainage. They pour stones in a hole and pour water in it and see how quick it drains. That's almost impossible to do now. People just don't want to fight all of that, and they will move away from the area. It's very hard for a lot of people to make that adjustment. This is all they've ever known. They do not want to leave. My aunt is a prime example. Her kids have tried to get her to higher ground, and she'll go for a day or two, but she's okay, let's go. I'm ready to go home. Home is home. That's where the heart is. I got the title of chief. It was an election process. Our previous chief, Chief Winterhawk, suddenly passed. Chief Winterhawk had spent a lot of time with his grandmother and practiced the old ways in his day-to-day life. So he knew a lot of the history. And I had worked with him very closely on preserving some of our land and our history. When he passed, I was hesitant to run in the election to become chief. Our blood women came out for the election, and course, I ran unopposed. I knew in my heart that if I didn't step up and at least try, that all the hard work that our elders had put into thus far on preserving our history would have been for nothing.
Now, Chief Abbott and her community also lead public events to raise awareness about their culture and traditions. They're also making connections with other Indigenous communities across the country.
The Nause-Waiwash has one big fundraising event, and it's a Native American festival. We celebrate Mother Earth. We celebrate change in the seasons. It's open to the public. We have all different tribal nations come in. There's Native dancing, Native drums, Native cultural stories. Bringing all these people together once a year, it's all about preservation.
Like the Nause-Waiwash, other Indigenous communities are working to preserve their ancestral homelands. And many are making great strides, like the Northern Chumash tribe. After more than a decade of advocacy, the Biden administration created the Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary in California. This sanctuary, which is managed in partnership with the Chumash tribe and others in the area, protects 4,500 square miles off the central California coast.
When I'm out on the ancestral land, it's very emotional to be able to walk the paths that they walked, do what they did, and try to make the best of it. I've done a lot of healing out here. If we listen to our surroundings, we could probably get Mother Earth back into balance. I think that she will even herself out with a little nudge from us, and I think we'll get our 4 seasons back. And if I think each one of us can step up and do one thing, get it all back into balance, it'd be better for everybody. And I want my grandchildren to be able to walk trails and be able to go to a park and see eagles and even come down here and trap if they want to. I want to have that available for my grandchildren.
Thanks for listening. To hear more stories like this, visit us at pewtrust.org/afterthefact. If you have questions or feedback that you'd like to share, you can write to us at podcast@pewtrust.org. For the Pew Charitable Trust, I'm Emily Chow, and this is After the Fact.